All right, my beautiful people. Now we're going to go through chapter 8, which is the 5 steps audience insight. So to understand really your target audience, really you have to design a campaign that is fundamentally effective for them. And for us to be able to do that, we have to look at the things or the barriers that people the benefits, the barriers, the motivators that influence people's decisions. With perceived barriers, this is what we're starting with. Perceived barriers essentially is identifying the different barriers that or challenges, obstacles or challenges that your audience perceive when it comes to adopting the desired behaviors. And so these barriers can be psychological barriers, they can be physical, or they can be cultures that need to be addressed in your campaign strategy. So essentially, what you want to do, what you want your campaign to do is eliminate those barriers or lessen them so that you can actually get your people to do what you want them to do. Okay? So maybe part of the problems does anyone here have a desire to work out, to be healthy? Not necessarily to work out, but to be healthy. All right. So quite a few people. As you want this desire, there are certain things that become barriers for you that prevent you from going to the gym or working out or joining a sports team or whatever the case it is that you need to do. These barriers sometimes are psychological, sometimes are physical, and sometimes they are social or cultural. For example, maybe one of the problems is that you don't drive and you don't live close to a gym. Yeah? So that can be a physical barrier that you perceive. And so if I'm designing a campaign for that, then I would say, hey, well, there are groups that meet in your area that are within a mile radius where you could walk and join that group, right? So to get people to become healthier, if that's the barrier I'm trying to eliminate. There are other things like psychological barriers where I don't feel like getting up and working out in the morning, or I don't have time in the morning, I have to do it at night, or so forth, which you will then have to work through as part of your campaign. The desired benefits are knowing what benefits your audience seek from adopting the desired behavior. So understanding these motivations or motivators allows you to tailor your message to highlight the positive outcome that you can expect. The idea here is, again, there's a lot of people that raise their hand in terms of saying, I want to be healthier, okay? But each one of the people that are here, each person that raised their hand may want to do it for a different reason. So some may want to get fit because they get more compliments on it. Some may want to get fit for health reasons. Some may want to get fit because, well, they found out that they have some diabetes or cholesterol or whatever, and they want to have a healthier heart or whatever the case is, right? So then you have to think, if I'm designing this campaign for people whose desire is moved or motivators are moved by the fact that they have high cholesterol and they want they want a healthier heart, then my campaign should incorporate these things. Does that make sense? Yeah. And if the desired outcome of the people that I'm addressing is to look better so that they can have a more successful dating life or a bigger dating pool, then my campaign should contain that. Does that make sense? You also want to look at potential motivators, and these are what drives your audience decision-making process and what helps them identify the emotional and rational factors that can influence their behavior and their desire for behavioral change. Thank you. And so competition is recognizing the existing behavior or alternatives that compete with the desired behavior. So let's say the desired behavior is to get up and go to the gym. Okay, get up and work out. That's the desired behavior that you're trying to achieve through your campaign. Your people are interested in that, they're invested in that. What do you think the competition would be? think it through. What's competing against that person getting up and going to church, getting up and going to the gym?
Staying at home.
Staying at home, sleeping a little longer, right? These would be competitive behaviors that are stopping the person from uh, um, accomplishing that task. And those are things that we have to analyze and look at so that we can create a strategy that effectively positions our campaign against these alternatives. Okay, cool.
One second.
All right, so identifying audience insight, the exchange theory. The exchange theory is essentially this versatile framework that applies to a wide range of behaviors and contexts. And within social marketing, you can leverage the principles to actually be able to encourage people to do certain types of behaviors that you want to do. So for example, your social campaigns, they may focus on diverse behaviors from adopting a healthier diet, to increasing physical activities, to reducing carbon footprints, to quitting smoking, whatever the range the case is. The exchange theory can adapt to each of these behaviors by addressing the perceived benefits and the costs associated with them. So what that means is the cost considerations are what are things like the tangible costs, so things like money expenses, time commitment, or physical effort that is associated with the desired behavior. So how much money is this going to cost me? How much time is this going to cost me? How much physical effort is this going to cost? And is the exchange worth that? Is the benefit, the perceived benefit, not the actual benefit, because they may be different, is the perceived benefit worth the cost? So essentially, you can have $100 bag, leather bag, and a $7,000 Louis Vuitton bag that is made of the same quality, right? But the perceived exchange, sorry, the perceived idea of how much one costs over the other and the perceived benefits, not the actual benefits, because the actual benefits are the same. It's the same size bag, in this case, same size bag here. The actual benefit is I can put the same amount of stuff in this bag as I can in bag number 2, right? That's the actual benefit. Perceived benefit is what kind of social association will I carry if I carry a $7,000 bag in my hand versus the $100 Rambler bag. Does that make sense? Okay. So that would be the exchange theory. In exchange for my 7,000, I'm perceiving that the benefits I'm getting outweigh the cost, that monetary cost. So then in terms of behavioral change, you're also looking at the same thing. Is the cost, whatever it is, monetary, right, money, or emotional, or physical, or commitment, or whatever, justify the end result, okay? So things like inconvenience, social stigma, or fear of change, they can significantly impact the perceived cost of something. And as part of your job as someone who's creating these campaigns is to acknowledge and address the cost perception for these, for whatever behavioral change you're trying to create. All right. So perceived barriers, again, are the things that people perceive to be or think they are perceived barriers, yes. They are the things that people think that this is a problem, or this is going to be a challenge or an obstacle. The first things that you want to do is respond to questions. So engaging with your target audience through things like surveys, interviews, or focus group is a great way of gaining insight into what they actually face. And what you want to do is actually ask open-ended questions, like the ones that say, what challenges do you face in adopting this new behavior? Or what obstacles prevent you from taking actions? When you ask these kinds of questions, you get a response that really allows you to understand what are the barriers? What is stopping that person from taking on whatever behavioral change you want them to take on. And what you want to know is that behavioral change or behavioral change barriers, they come in different forms or they manifest in various ways. And it's really just very essential to identify the nature in which these things happen. And these can probably be characterized in terms of like things like practical, psychological, or a combination of both the practical and the psychological barriers that you see. When we're talking about practical barriers, we're talking about tangible obstacles that individuals may face. These can be time constraints. You don't have time to go to the gym. It can be financial limitations. You can't afford to pay for gym or private lessons or whatever the case. You can't afford to work with a trainer. Lack of access to resources or services and or physical or logistic challenges. So these are practical barriers. These psychological barriers are in the thoughts, and so they're related to their emotions, beliefs, attitude, and perception. And these usually include things like fear, self-doubt, social stigma, and lack of motivation. What will people say about me if I'm no longer smoking with them? What will people say if I don't attend these parties and I don't smoke like weed and I don't take drugs or whatever the case is, right? So because the social circle is there, and so people are going to say, oh, well, maybe this person is weird, or he's not like us anymore, or he thinks he's better than us, right? These are all psychological barriers that we have to address, and we have to change the perceived cost. We have to change the perceived benefits. And finally, you have the mixed barriers where people often encounter a combination of these two, where you have adapting. So someone, for example, that is attempting to quit smoking may face practical challenges like withdrawal symptoms, and these are physiological problems, and also psychological barriers such as fear of gaining weight. Okay, because you're no longer smoking and you're so used to bringing something to your mouth, the alternative usually is eating to satiate that desire. And so there could be a combination of both fears. Well, if I stop smoking, I'm going to gain weight. If I stop smoking, then I'll have the withdrawal symptoms. And there are other factors that really just underline and contribute to both the psychological and the practical aspect. And those can be things like socioeconomical status, cultural and norm beliefs, and personal beliefs and values. All right, again, desired benefits is really what you want to highlight to your audience. This is what makes an effective social marketing campaign. So the priority audience really needs benefits. This is how you get them to actually be able to change their behavior because they perceive the values and the advantages of being in this place. Sometimes these benefits are tangible value, tangible benefits, so things like saving money or benefiting financially or improving the quality of life, enhanced convenience, reduced risks. These are tangible things. And sometimes the benefits are intangible and they can be very much like emotional well-being. They could be social recognition, a sense of purpose, an alignment with personal values. And I like the saying that says common sense is not as common. Okay. And sometimes it's difficult for people to see how to navigate. So there's a gap almost between what someone desires and how to get there. And a lot of times, your job in the social campaign is that to take that desire, which is already embedded, and show them the how to and make it simple. So it's kind of like hand holding almost to get from point A to point B. And this, by the way, happens a lot of times in our personal lives as well. Because behavioral change happens in the little behaviors that we take on as well. Okay. So for example, let's say you're a very big coffee drinker and you want to stop drinking coffee because it's making you jittery, but you don't know what to replace it with. Okay, maybe seeking out a doctor's advice or looking at how you can replace it or worrying about the withdrawal. These are all things that happen in our day-to-day life that are very, very simple that we can really look into. Does that make sense? And we can see how that process of I desire to do this, I just don't know how. And because the paradox of choice is so overwhelming, I don't know how to get from point A to point B. Does that make sense? And so I put that on the back burner, or I put it as an unattainable goal that is just above my limitation. Or the term is like placing upper limits on yourself. Okay. So when you see the increased benefits as the marketer, as the social marketer, then you can also translate that into action and into steps that people can take through your program to eliminate all these barriers. And then the last one is positive reinforcement, where the individual experiences positive outcome or benefit from a behavioral change, and it reinforces their commitment to that behavior, making it more likely to become habits. All right, so potential motivators are things that potentially can motivate others to take on that behavioral change. So we'll start with the ideas shared with social marketers. So social marketers should actively seek insight from their target audience. And this involves listening to their perspective, concerns, and or aspirations. And so by doing so, marketers can gain a deeper understanding of what drives individuals within that audience. And these motivations can actually be multifaceted, so they can be encompassing goals, values, societal issues, and a lot of other things. And that just goes to show how diverse motivation can be within an audience, and how you need to craft a more nuanced campaign so that you can address these things in a better and more cohesive way. What you want to do to actually uncover these motivators that are kind of like hiding beneath the surface, where people are actually, if you change the question, the answers that you will get will be different. Okay? And so people are ready to give you that information if you ask the right questions. But that is where the trick kind of lies, right? So you can't say, what are your barriers? People won't know that. But you can say, what would inspire you to change your behaviors? You can say, what are your top priorities? What are the things that you need? What are 3 top priorities that you have to accomplish each day? Make sense? When you change the question, you change the answer. It goes from, I don't know, it's too far away, to saying, I can actually get there, but my priority is not to get to the gym. My priority is to drop off my kids at school, go to work, come back, make food for my kids, and do their homework with them. That's significantly different than saying the gym is too far, or it's not on my list. If we change the question, we will get the better answer. So when you look at that example, then the priority of that person tells you that your campaign should have that involved in a way that you're like, well, actually, it fits into this time slot. Or this is how we can make it more convenient. Or we've created now, again, local classes that pop up in the park right next to your house, where you can drop off your kids and go back home. And within that 30-minute period, that's all you need to do, right? So we talked briefly about the competition or identifying the competitors, but again, this isn't within our scope, bless you. Within our scope of social marketing, we're not really talking about competitors in terms of the person that's selling a product or a service that's similar to mine, or maybe an organization that offers services that are similar to mine. That's not actually our case. The idea here is that we're talking about behaviors or choices that your top priority audience is currently engaged in. And so these behaviors may be direct competition to the desired outcome. Okay, so these are things that people are already doing that stops them from doing it. So it's much easier, for example, to walk into your house, sit on your couch and watch TV, than to walk into your house, go upstairs, put your bags down, upstairs, and then do the work that you need to do. It's almost like that couch is very tempting. You just want to sit there and watch. Does that make sense? And so that would be the competition. Challenges are the things that within like lifestyle, priorities, and habits that influence and shape your target audience choices. And then when we talk about alternative frameworks, rather than viewing the competition as an obstacle, consider it as an opportunity for strategic insight. And so what you're trying to do is really just understand your target audience and that they engage or why they engage in particular behaviors and how you could provide valuable clues for tailoring your campaign effectively. So when they tell you of these challenges, it's not something that's meant to discourage you and say, well, I can't change their behavior. It's actually more of an opportunity for you to really gain more insight so that you can tailor it better, make it more better suited for that. Questions so far? How are we doing? Yeah. Okay. So the McKinsey framework, McKinsey-Moore framework, it identifies valuable insight. The first is increase the benefit of the target audience. And so enhancing the perceived benefits that the target audience is going to receive is a very important part of your campaign. So you really want to highlight and showcase the rewards, the incentives, or positive outcomes associated with adopting the desired behavior. Increasing, and that would be like emphasizing the value of this behavioral change in terms of personal goals and aspirations can also be very powerful, bless you. And social and emotional rewards that are also connected with your campaign. You also want to decrease the barriers to the target behavior. you want to, again, decrease the barriers for the target behaviors. So you want to identify and minimize obstacles. You want to simplify the process and increase support. And you want to address psychological blocks that are preventing someone from making these changes. And the final part of that framework would be to decrease the benefit of the competing behavior. We gave the example of sleeping in terms of instead of working out, we'll decrease the benefit of sleeping in and increase the benefit of working out by saying maybe that workout carries you throughout the day and it helps you become emotionally more regulated, and that is more beneficial than sleeping in an extra 30 minutes a day. Creating dissonance also. So where the individual becomes aware of the inconsistencies between their behaviors and their beliefs or values, making competing behaviors less appealing, and finally offering alternatives. So provide an alternative solution or behaviors that are more desirable and more aligned with your campaign. How are we feeling so far? Is it good? So in addition to understanding perceived barriers, desired benefits, and potential motivators, it's crucial to really delve into the role of influential others and social norms in shaping your priority audience's behavior. So things that you want to look at is identifying key influencers. So who holds the sway over your priority audience? Is it family members? Is it friends? Is it colleagues? Is it community leaders? How can they sway their opinions? You want to understand also the influence dynamic. So you want to gain a deep understanding of how these influential others' opinions, actions, and recommendations impact your audience's behavior. A good example, or like a personal example of that, is I'm 31 years old, and if my mom tells me she doesn't like my dress, I will huff and I will puff and I'll go change my dress. Okay. Even though I may or may not agree with her, it still has that influence on me. Not because she wants me to change my dress, right? Not because she's forcing me to change my dress, but because her words are more important to me than my words in a sense. So you can see in that sense how other people's influence on your day-to-day life can be a positive or a negative thing. Depends on what value they hold in your life, right? If your mom or your dad tells you they don't like your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and you know that your mom and your dad love you more than anything in the world, that may make you second guess your choices. And it really creates that distance within yourself, saying, oh, well, there's no alignment with what I believe to be right because my parents taught me so, and the choice that I make. Does that make sense? Okay. Midstream audience are individuals that may not be the primary target, but they are indirectly affected by the behavioral change effort within a community or social network. Okay? An example of that, again, I'm trying to bring these examples hopefully closer to you. I have 3 nephews, 2 older ones, and sometimes I sit with them and I talk to them about whatever like behavioral problems they're having. And usually the other one is listening in the corner, even though they don't have that particular problem. They're just kind of there, sitting there attentively, and they chime in with a question or a comment somewhere in that conversation. So even though the direct conversation or the direct audience was the first nephew, the second nephew chimes in and he feels the benefit from what is being said. Does that make sense? So that would be, in this case, that would be the midstream audience where you weren't necessarily my intended audience, but you benefited from what I was saying. Okay? So you want to gain also a comprehensive understanding of the role and influence of midstream audience. So you want to consider their attitudes, beliefs, and potential barriers that they may have regarding the desired behavioral change. Almost like a good side effect. So an example of that would be building on healthier eating habit campaign and healthier eating habit campaigns in a school context. So first, you want to identify influential teachers and parents who can directly influence students' eating behavior. You also want to understand that teachers and parents may be concerned about the students' health and academic performance. You want to develop messaging that emphasizes how healthier eating habits among students can lead to improved academic performances, reduce absenteeism, and a more positive school environment. You want to collaborate with teachers and parents to organize events, workshops, and information sessions on nutrition and healthy eating. And you want to showcase success stories from schools where teachers and parents played a vital role in promoting healthier eating habits. So the direct audience in this case is the students, because they are the one who were trying to change the behavior. The influencing factors, or the midstream audience, would be the parents and the teachers who hold an influence on them, and who also can have like a side benefit from this and be a contributing factor in making campaigns work together. Does that make sense? How we feel it? Yes? Give it a second. Oh, sorry. Turn it back on. So effective social marketing really just hinges on this idea of understanding your priority audience. So you can look at different research tools that will help you do that, and it helps you deepen your understanding of these things. And so you're looking at maybe tailored details, so tailored campaign development, where the insight gained through formative research provides the foundation for developing a more tailored and audience-centric approach or campaign. And so as you're doing these research and this formative research, it helps you create the message. It helps you find the interventions and the strategies that will resonate with your priority audience specific needs, values, and preferences. I am losing my voice. You want to also continuously adapt as a result of the research. So as more and more research come in, as you carry out that campaign and kind of have the feedback that is built into your campaign, you're able to take that and recreate it into something else. So I think there's like dust or like there's something like that. It could be the chalk or something that is like now stuck in my throat, and it's not a happy breathing moment, but we'll get through this. But my voice is getting lower and lower. So if you can't hear me, let me know. All right. So resources for audience insight, we're just going to start with search and review. You want to review existing literatures, studies, and reports related to your priority audience and the behaviors you need to influence. You also want to analyze data from reputable sources. You can use secondary data. You can look at trends, challenges, and opportunities within your target audience as a result of a data set that already exists. You can also do original research using either qualitative methods or quantitative methods, or a combination of the two. And qualitative methods are things like focus groups, in-depth interviews, ethnographic studies that really just help you explore the nuanced aspect of your audience's perspectives. These are usually open-ended questions, so you don't necessarily come back with statistics as easily as a quantitative method. And quantitative methods are surveys or questionnaires and experiments designed to gather numerical data. They're designed to gather numbers. So within resources, there are traditional research tools that include surveys, questionnaires, structured interviews, focus groups, and things like surveys and questionnaires are more effective in collecting quantitative data on knowledge, attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs within your audience. Structured interviews allow more of an in-depth conversation, and it really just answers the question, why? Why is why do the statistical numbers say this? And it gives you a deeper, more insight. And then you have the non-traditional research techniques. And these are things like social listening, sentimental analysis, online behavioral tracking. Social listening involves monitoring social platforms to gain insight into audience discussions, sentiments, and trending topics. So following a Reddit post and not really being an active participant, but just following it would be social listening. Sentiment analysis uses natural language processing to evaluate online content and gauge the public sentiment towards a particular topic. And online behavior tracking is you just observe how your audience interacts with digital content, and that reveals a certain pattern and or preference. And the KAPB survey is a comprehensive research tool, which is knowledge, attitude, practices, and beliefs. And this is a tool that assesses various dimensions of your audience behavior. It examines their knowledge levels and attitudes towards particular issues. And it looks at the interplay between these different factors, between the knowledge, the attitude, the practices, and the belief. All right, so barriers to attending regularly. So through formative research and data collection, we can identify various barriers that goes back to this. So what are things that stop people from attending regularly? Should we go back to the case study? All right. So the case study that we're going to look at is one that looks at where is it? How audience insight played a crucial role in developing strategy aimed at reducing fall among senior citizens through implementation of fitness classes. So that's the case study. The purpose is to decrease fall among senior citizens. First and foremost, you want to understand the desired benefits, and here we are focusing on our audience, our senior citizen audience. And so seniors expressed a strong desire for improved balance, strength, and overall well-being. And they thought opportunities to maintain their independence and enjoy an active lifestyle as they age. That is their desired benefits. And so that's something that they want. And then you have this barrier of them joining, and the barriers prevent seniors from joining classes. These barriers include things like concerns about safety, accessibility, and the social aspect of attending the class. And some senior citizens lacked awareness of available programs that crafted to their specific needs. Finally, what you want to do is you want to craft a strategy to be able to do this, and then you want to measure the success of what you need. All right, so looking at this, um, uh, case study, sorry. You're looking at the barriers to attending regularly. So through formative research and collection, we've identified various barriers that senior citizens face when it comes to attending these fitness classes on a consistent and regular basis. So these barriers include things like transportation, scheduling conflict with other activities or appointments, and physical discomfort. And when we identify the barriers, then we have to actually come up with a strategy that solves these problems, that allows them to be able to come to class without them saying, oh, well, I can't do this because I have other appointments. I can't do this because of transportation. I can't do this because of physical discomfort. And we also want to look at the other side, which are the things that motivate them to come regularly. And you want to uncover these things so that you can implement them as part of the benefits. So things like improved health, social interactions, and the opportunity to engage in enjoyable physical activities that promote well-being. You also have the competition analysis or the competitive analysis, where we're looking at things that stop senior citizens from attending these programs. So what are the alternatives that people have that stop them from doing this? So maybe family members, friends, and healthcare providers were identified as influential figures. In this case, I would tell someone, oh, well, you should go and attend this class, or I'll be happy to drive you there, or whatever the case is. So a positioning statement identifies how we want our target audience to perceive our offering compared to the competitors. So audience here, what you're trying to do is you're trying to guide insight guides the creation. So audience insight actually guides your creation of a positioning statement that resonates with the needs, desires, and motivations of your audience. The positioning statement is how and where you place yourself in that marketing. Okay, what are the perceived barriers or desires that or benefits from this? And so then we have core product, and the core product represents the fundamental benefit or solution that addresses the audience's primary needs. So you're looking at insights that help refine this aspect by ensuring that the core product aligns precisely with what the audience values most. The actual product represents the tangible features and attitudes or attributes that we offer. And so insights from your audience guide the development of these features to meet the audience expectations. So if your audience values safety, you might want to incorporate safety measures into the design of your product. So we've talked before about the dating project that we're working on. Part of the things that would fall into this would say, okay, let's look at these surveys or questionnaires that we sent out and find out what people are actually needing so that we can create the right product for these people. Does that make sense? So then we have the core product, which is a community that provides events or opportunities to meet with people and a community, and within that same community includes the core personal development, personal growth. That's the core product. The actual product will then go back into the nuances of the research that we've done and find out what are the actual problems that they're facing and how can we tailor that based on the overall expectations. And then the augmented product is additional elements beyond the core and the actual products, enhancing the overall customer experience. So this is where Insight informs the selection of these augmentations to ensure that they align with the audience preferences. The next thing that you want to look at also is how Insight helped develop strategies. We're looking at pricing strategies, place strategies, and promotional elements. Pricing strategies is, again, audience insight tells you where your pricing should be and what it's about, like what your audience values the most about your offering. And so understanding this, excuse me. Understanding this helps in determining the perceived value of your product or your service. So if your audience highly values your product or your service, they perceive that there's a high benefit to it, you can often justify the higher price point. Again, if we go through the willingness to pay $7,000 for a Louis Vuitton purse, there is a perceived benefit that is justified by the people who are paying that $7,000. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. Place strategy is understanding your audience's location accessibility preferences here the insight from your audience helps you identify the most convenient distribution channels or physical locations where your target audience is likely to engage with your offerings. So there is like a coffee place that does specialty coffees that have, like the energy boosting mushrooms and things like that, or matcha, or things that are coffee. They have coffee, but they have also alternatives that seem to be healthier. One thing that I've seen, for example, is that for them to reach their audience, which is health conscious coffee drinkers, they place themselves inside gyms. So they'll take their coffee stand and they'll have their product at the gym where they can include protein shakes, they can include other boosting substances, natural substances that can do that. And so that would be a place strategy. They know their audience, they know where they're at, and in order to attract them to be able to actually go to their stores and get that coffee from there, they place themselves in the gym first to get to have testers or to have or sell the actual drinks and so forth. So that would be a placing strategy. And promotional elements are messages that should resonate with your audience's needs, desires, and motivations or motivators. And all of these actually come from your insight on your audience. The more you know them, the better you're able to create promotional elements that are catered for their needs. Questions so far? All right, so Audience Insight serves this as a compass for refining your social marketing plan. And so by examining the insight gained, you can identify areas that need potential revision. And that's essentially what you're looking at. Your insight, the audience insight is so important that it really can change the way you are doing things as well. And it should change the way you're doing things, because it's not about what I can gain out of it. It's about what we can do as a result of the data that we have and being able to leverage that data to create something that is powerful. So if audience insights indicate deep-seated beliefs that are resistant to change, it's time to revisit your messaging strategy. So consider framing your message in a way that addresses these beliefs or gradually introduces alternative viewpoints. Insurmountable barriers are barriers preventing your audience from taking action. So you want to collaborate with your audience to identify potential solutions or ways to mitigate those barriers. and you want to tailor interventions to be able to move them towards that behavioral change that you need to do. Unclear behavioral objectives. If your audience reveals that they are confused or uncertain regarding the behaviors you're promoting, where it's not targeted, there is no niche, you have to revisit your behavioral objectives, and you have to find clear, specific, and actionable objectives that really just resonate with people. And perceived high or high perceived cost is another thing that you really have to look at your audience's insight to be able to see, do they perceive a very high cost associated with your with the desired behavioral change? In which case, then you'd want to explain the long-term benefits that outweigh any perceived cost at the moment. Sometimes you have a choice in getting a pay reduction by taking a job that pays a little less with your current qualifications, but in 3 years, it'll pay double the amount. But if you're looking at the short term, you're like, well, this is actually going to cost me 25% of my current paycheck, and I don't want to do that. But if you look at it at a 5-year increment, then you'll see, oh, well, with every year that passes after those 2 years, it's going to double. Does that make sense? So that would be a high perceived cost, would be the 25% of your paycheck. But then if you actually assess it, you say, oh, well, that the benefits in the long run outweigh the current cost. And so then the behavioral change becomes more and more desirable. Other things that you can do is make sure that there's the redundant objectives. So the audience insight reveals overlapping or redundant objectives. You have to streamline your campaign's focus. So consolidate the different objectives that are similar so that you are clear on what you want them to do, and there's more of the and there's less overwhelming things and aspects about your campaign. Usually one call to action for a campaign is really good. Conflicts of behavior and knowledge objectives. You are looking at essentially the behaviors and the knowledge are in harmony. So if they conflict, you have to revise them to complement each other, because knowledge should support and drive the behavioral campaign. If people don't know why they're behaving a certain way, then they're more likely not to do this or not to want to particularly follow these sets of behaviors. And we see this in our day-to-day lives as well. We see this in our society as well, where we say no, like take little kids, for example, the parent may say no to something and they may not understand why they shouldn't jump off a table, right? But the parent understands. And so there's a gap between the knowledge and the desired outcome, the knowledge and the objective. And so maybe by educating the kid and showing them that if you fall, you're going to get hurt. If you jump off the table, you're going to get hurt. Then that would solve that gap. Does that make sense? Okay. And of course, we're doing this on a bigger scale. And so it's a little different, but that is the basic thing. And finally, if your audience insight reveals that your initial goal is impractical or unattainable, you want to revise it for it to be more realistic. And so you want to achieve, or you want to set achievable milestone that ensure the progress is made. Last thing we're going to look at today is ethical considerations. And these are things that you have to look into when you are doing your research. So full transparency, prioritize transparency in your research process. You want to make sure that there's voluntary participation, and you want to make sure that it is approved by the institutional review board if you are part of that institution as well. All right. So that, my friends, is it for this lecture.